I'm the kind of man that wants to be around people that are building, whether it's with their hands or whether it's with their mind. And there's simply just not enough people like this to go around in the world. So, what happens? Well, the people that are wanting to build have to learn how to build in solitude first before they can accumulate the kinds of energetic vibration to attract different kinds of people. And you have to have certain kinds of thought algorithms in place that are going to attract certain kinds of builders and people as well. And this is also going to be the case with your relationships. Of course, any kind of relationship that you have, with a woman specifically as a man, because this video is going to be more for the men here from the male's perspective and for the male perspective. But I think there will be a lot of good things that women will get from this, because the godly bad boy doesn't have a lot of friends simply due to his ability to maintain his boundaries, articulate himself in a well-spoken manner, and also being able to be on point with his body, with his mind, with his spiritual practice, with his finances. He takes care of himself. He doesn't necessarily let anything get too out of control before things start to have to be made into order. And it's not necessarily about trying to control everything, but it is more about trying to understand what you can and cannot control and taking a stoic approach to controlling that which you can control. All right. And the godly bad boy, who in many people's eyes, we are the godly bad boys simply because we're not simps, simply because we're not cuckolds or cucks or whatever you want to, cuckoldry. We're not participating in the cuckoldry. That's what it's that's the terminology there. And we're not participating in just being these friends with people. We're not interested in necessarily having friends just because we want to talk about stuff. And don't get me wrong, some of those surface level conversations can be very beautiful with people, but there's a time and a place for it, and there's not always going to be a time and a place for it. That's why there's a certain time and place for it. And so many people want you to be wrapped up in this predictable mindset. Has anybody else just gotten bored with people? I don't know what it is. I mean, I do know what it is, but at the same time, I don't really know what it is. People just want to repeat things they've heard. They don't want to actually dig inside themselves to find authenticity. And that's something that the godly bad boy has as well, is authentic. He's authentic in his behavior, and he's capable of being alone and in solitude. So many people don't want to see somebody that is capable of being alone thrive. Have you ever noticed that? Everybody needs to talk about other things and people and drama and situations. And then finally, when you're somebody that can simply be doing your own thing, all of a sudden people have a problem with it, because they're like, well, what's he up to? Well, what is he doing? What is she doing? What is that? What is that? Blah, blah, blah. We just know that we don't need to care about things that we can't control. That's all that it is. And especially for the men out there, we understand that we can't control the emotions of women. We can't control what they have going on. We can lead them, or we can just let them go. That's all that we can do as men. And if they don't want to be led, there's not much that we can do. And so the fact that you're able to walk away from women as a godly bad boy, and I'm saying the godly bad boy because it's not necessarily that you're a bad boy. It's just that you have the characteristics to be a bad boy. You have the unpredictability. You have the ability to be dangerous. You have the ability to be a threat. But it's not necessarily that you want to be those things. It's not like you want to be, fighting just to fight all the time. But when you are on the front lines of the spiritual war, where you are participating in spirit and truth and the fight thereof and therein, people are going to start watching you. People are going to start wondering what you're about. And that's just going to be coming with the territory. Do you think Jesus went to the cross thinking that he wasn't going to be spit on or betrayed or stabbed or whatever? Like, do you think that he went like and whipped and put the crown of thorns? Like, do you think he knew that all that was going to happen? Of course he did, but he didn't, and he expected it, but he wasn't scared for it. And it doesn't mean that he was hurt any less. This just means that the tendency that we have to look at truth and to see pain in the truth, in the spirit that we have, and that we can manifest and bring forth into fruition, yes, it can be painful. And depending on our perspective, it can be that we are seeing a multitude of different kinds of formations occur in the pain itself. But out of that pain comes this brilliant, shining, radiant truth and spirit that nobody can take away from you. I don't know who needs to hear this, but there is a garden. There's a garden in your heart that no war, no person can ever touch. Not even death itself can touch the garden blossoming in your soul and in your heart. And make no mistake that this war that we live in, because this love, they say that love is a battlefield, right? And that's absolutely true. All is fair in love and war. And there's a reason for that. It's because morals, and there's a thin line between love and hate. Morals are going to be what guides you, but what's actually going to allow you to make the proper decisions to actually manifest what you want is going to be whether or not you can hold to those morals or values or principles. And you don't need to, this is also what makes the godly bad boy different, is that he actually lives a life of virtue, but he doesn't try to force anybody else into believing what he does, or he just leads by example. He just does what he's there to do, and he leaves. Like he doesn't need to do much else. But have you guys ever noticed how many people are just so inauthentic, and it's almost as if everybody's predictable. You're gonna have the same conversation here as there. You're gonna do that there. You're gonna do this here. In my workouts, for example, I like to switch things up all the time. I don't ever really like to do the same kinds of things. I'll have a regimen, and my regimen is go until it hurts. But I like to switch it up. Even in my meditations and my prayers, I keep it fresh. I keep it light. I keep it cool. I keep it understandable. I keep it simple. But I also know that there's that spontaneity element that is going to really spark this unique interest that is going to guide me through life. And the Holy Spirit is going to guide me with that spark. Whatever kind of spark is ignited into my soul, when I'm being fed the fuel from the Most High God into my soul, the Holy Spirit is going to guide me to do whatever I need to do, because at that point, my body is a vessel. My body is just, I let my body be basically a walking satellite for God. And when I let my body being a walking satellite for God, and I let this be so, because your mind is an electromagnetic tool, right? You have to think about the mind and the brain specifically as an electromagnetic pulsing artifact that can emit information into the universe and take in information. I see a lot of people, this is a lot of religious people. This is where the godly bad boy comes into play as well. Is the godly bad boy understands that it's spirit and truth and the capacity for him to be a godlike savage, which is going to be able to propel him to further heights. But the reason for that is because you have to be able to walk through the depths of hell. As deep as the valleys are, so too are the heights of heavenliness. So the depths of hellishness are going to be not necessarily equitable, but the level of depths that you go to in hell and in hellishness are going to reflect in the altitude of heavenliness that you can attain and that you can witness and you can live through yourself. And this is something that you get to decide to do. You get to decide. That's the mentality. You don't have to decide. You get to decide. And that's a beautiful thing. But there's so many people that want to just let other people make decisions for them. There's so many people that don't know that they can live this life, that they don't have to be a cuck. They don't have to be a depleted coomer. They don't have to be a hoe. They don't have to be all these things that society wants them to be, because society wants them to fit in. And it only is going to exacerbate the proclivity that the society has toward sin by wanting to do these things. The godly bad boy does not care about being in the world. Okay, of course, we need to make our dent in the world in some way, shape, and form. And one of the ways that I do that personally is through spiritual work, because spiritual work is work, and it's not necessarily something that is just going to be, people think that you just go on here. I'm not a content creator. I don't know where people think that I get, like, I'm a content creator. I do create content, but I don't consider myself a content creator. I am aiming and training to be a godlike savage and a psychologist that provides a pathway to revolutionize psychology and spirituality. And that's what I'm aiming for. So I'm here to fight. I'm here to fight for spirit and truth. And I don't know exactly why there's so many people that are not understanding what exactly is happening in the society that we live in, because it's almost to the point now to where you'd have to be literally blind to see certain things going on that are going on, and to not see things that are going on rather. And it astounds me that there are people in their 60s, 70s, or 80s, even 50s that don't see certain things happening. And some parts, in some ways, I understand, but it's like, really, you're still trying to swim against the current. Decades and decades now, like later, I mean, how long are you going to try to swim against the current? It doesn't make sense to me. It just doesn't. And everybody's predictable. Everybody is trying to fit in. People are copying everybody else. That's what makes me and content creators, quote unquote, like me, different, is that we don't necessarily, like, we'll take inspiration from people, sure, but we articulate ourselves in our own way, in our own unique way. There might be similar topics that we talk about, but that doesn't necessarily mean that we're doing the same kinds of things. Because people that are actually players in the game of life, people that actually understand the game, I've mentioned this before with the Machiavelli's 3 different kinds of people in this life. There are the players, there are the useful pieces, and then there are the lost rebels. Lost rebels are like 5% of the population. The players are like 5% of the population. And everybody else is a useful piece in the game. They are either being manipulated and don't know it, or being manipulated and don't care. That's what it means to be a useful piece. If you want to be a player in this life, and guess what? It really doesn't. This is something interesting I learned over the past few years. It is actually not that hard to make it into the top 20% of people on the planet doing certain kinds of things. And what exactly does that mean? Like, I don't really know what that means. Like, generally, when people say, oh, you're in the top 20%, it's like, okay, well, what exactly do you mean by that? Do you mean financially? Do you mean spiritually? Do you mean emotionally? Do you mean physically? What is the criteria? So here's my criteria for the top 20%. It's simply a matter of awakeness. And are you awakened to the reality of life? Because that's really all that matters. At the end of the day, it's going to be about whether or not you're going to be with Christ on the other side and you're on God's team or you're not. So the closer you are to God, and there are people in the top echelons of power, worldly power, that are close to God. And not every rich person is evil, but not every poor person is stupid either, or broke person is stupid. And this is something that I've articulated in the Regal Change Academy. This has been a topic we've discussed in the past, but there's a lot of hate that is unnecessary toward rich people. And there's a lot of misunderstanding toward broke people that doesn't need to be there as well. It's unnecessary. And it puts this whole society in a cycle of curses and trauma and misinterpretations and a lack of true understanding. So the godly bad boy, in order to get into the top 20%, you just need to have your body right, your mind right. You have a good mindset. You have a growth mindset. You don't have a fixed mindset or, a self-pity mindset. You're willing to take on the adventure of life as a man. And if you're a woman, if you want to be in the top 20% of women, which again isn't that hard. It's very easy. Most people just don't want to have responsibility. So if you can be responsible and accountable for yourself, that really puts you in the top 20% already most of the time. But what's really difficult is to get into that top 5%, because that's where the players are. That's where your true competitors are. And this is something I've been thinking a lot about is who are your competitors? Because you have competitors in this life. No matter what you're doing, no matter how you're doing it, you have competitors, whether you like it or not. Now, at the end of the day, you're only competing with yourself, and the godly bad boy knows this. But you also have to play the paradox of life, where you understand, this is where the awakened part comes into play. You understand that it is only you against yourself at the end of the day. However, while we live in this three-dimensional world and this physical plane, we understand that life is its own goal and it's its own momentum and its own kinetic energy, and life needs life to have life and vice versa. So it's all part of one collective conscious organism. There's a saying that goes something along the lines of God knows everything and is trying to find God on all programs at all times, and God knows everything but except where God came from. And this is where the godly bad boy wants to hunt for spirit and truth. And this is where he really shines and he stands out, because he knows that his goal is to expose evil, not to just let it stand by. And so I hope this video was useful and insightful for you guys. I think we'll round it off there for the time being. I could probably continue to go into this, but I have some more work to get done, and I've got some more meetings the rest of the day, and I'm really looking forward to those actually as well. So I'm really positive about the future right now. There's a lot of craziness going on in the world, but we who are prepared, we're going to be fine. We're going to be just fine. And people that have strong boundaries, that have strong principles, that know how to work with people, but not necessarily are attached, that's where the rubber hits the road. So I hope this message again was useful and insightful. Peace be with you all. Until next time.